prison, a world of steel and shadows where reality shatters expectations. Kim Anderson, fresh-faced and naive, her mind filled with TV drama fantasies. Day 1, the air thick with tension, eyes following her every move. Inmate Bob approaches, his intentions unclear, dangerous. Kim freezes, her training forgotten in the face of raw fear. Suddenly, Ortiz intervenes. An inmate? A savior? In that moment, Kim's world shifts. Black and white blurs to gray. She realized even here humanity persists, redemption possible, prison life unfiltered, where nightmares and heroes coexist. Kim's journey continues, forever changed by one shocking act. Kim Anderson, a young woman with a heart full of dreams and a head full of Hollywood prison dramas, decided to take a leap of faith. She applied for a correctional officer position at the Federal Correctional Institution Jesup, a medium security prison. Driven by a desire for a stable career and a curiosity about the world behind bars, she embarked on a journey that would forever change her life. With a mix of nervous anticipation and unwavering resolve, she attended the Correctional Officer Training Academy, eager to absorb every bit of knowledge and skill that would equip her for the task ahead. During her training, Kim found herself both fascinated and disturbed by the stories shared by experienced officers, tales of inmate cunning, elaborate escape attempts, and the constant threat of violence kept her on the edge of her seat. Yet amidst the cautionary tales, there were also glimpses of hope and humanity. As her training progressed, Kim excelled in her physical and tactical exercises, proving to be a quick learner and a natural leader. On her first day at Federal Correctional Institution Jesup, Kim's heart pounded in her chest as she walked through the towering metal gates. The weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her, the reality of her surroundings sinking in with every step. As she made her way through the labyrinthine corridors, accompanied by a senior officer, Kim couldn't help but scan the faces of the inmates she passed. As the days turned into weeks, Kim began to find her footing in the unfamiliar environment of Federal Correctional Institution Jesup. She quickly learned that the key to navigating the complex social dynamics of the prison was to establish clear boundaries while treating the inmates with respect. Her natural warmth and empathy, often hidden beneath her professional demeanor, shone through, disarming even the most hardened criminals. To her surprise, Kim discovered that many of the inmates responded positively to her presence. Kim couldn't deny that her physical appearance played a role in the way she was treated, both by the inmates and her fellow officers. Her youthful beauty, a stark contrast to the often harsh realities of prison life, seemed to elicit a sense of chivalry in the men around her. Despite the inherent challenges of her job, Kim found a sense of fulfillment in her interactions with the inmates. As the weeks turned into months, Kim settled into a routine at Federal Correctional Institution Jesup. She had learned the intricacies of the prison's daily operations, from conducting head counts to overseeing mealtimes to managing inmate movements. However, beneath the surface of normalcy, a sense of unease lingered in the back of Kim's mind. One inmate in particular began to stand out from the rest. His name was Bob, and he had developed an unsettling fascination with Kim. But as the days turned into weeks, Bob's behavior became increasingly erratic and intense. He would often mumble incoherently under his breath, his words laced with a mixture of longing and resentment. Kim noticed him lingering near her office more frequently, his eyes darting back and forth, as if searching for something. A shiver of apprehension ran down Kim's spine whenever their eyes met, a primal instinct warning her that something was amiss. Kim confided her concerns to a seasoned officer, a grizzled veteran who had seen it all during his decades working within the prison walls. "Don't let your guard down, Anderson," he warned, his voice low and gravelly. "Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is." Despite her growing apprehension about Bob, Kim refused to let fear dictate her actions. She continued to perform her duties with professionalism and compassion, determined to prove that she was not defined by her fears. She found solace in the predictability of her daily routine, finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of prison life. Each morning she would arrive at Federal Correctional Institution Jesup, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread as she passed through the security checkpoints. Amidst the harsh realities of prison life, Kim discovered glimmers of hope in unexpected places. She encountered inmates who, despite their circumstances, clung to the remnants of their humanity. There was Ortiz, a soft-spoken older inmate who served as a mentor to younger, more volatile prisoners. Kim found herself drawn to Ortiz's quiet strength, his unwavering belief in the power of redemption. The evening shift brought a familiar routine, a carefully orchestrated dance between the officers and the inmates. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the prison yard, a sense of anticipation hung in the air, the prelude to the nightly lockdown. Kim, stationed at her usual post in the control room, watched the security monitors intently as the inmates filed out of the mess hall. Among the inmates returning to their cells was Bob, his movements measured and deliberate, his eyes fixed on Kim's every move. Even from a distance, she could sense his intense gaze, a mixture of longing and something far more sinister. As the last of the inmates were secured in their cells, a sense of relief washed over Kim. Unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows, Kim took her usual position near her office, preparing for the official inmate count. Ortiz, the trusted orderly, was tasked with his usual evening cleaning duties, his movements slow and methodical as he made his way down the empty corridor. Hidden from view behind the flimsy curtain of a communal shower stall, Bob lay in wait. He had been meticulously planning this moment for weeks, his obsession with Kim consuming his every thought. Bob watched through a crack in the curtain as Kim, her back to him, reviewed some paperwork on her clipboard. As Ortiz approached Kim's office pushing his cleaning cart, he noticed the curtain to the shower stall was slightly ajar. In a flash, Bob made his move. He burst from the shower stall, his face contorted with a mixture of rage and lust, his makeshift weapon raised high. Kim, caught completely off guard, gasped in terror as Bob's powerful arm wrapped around her throat, cutting off her air supply. He slammed her against the wall, the impact knocking the breath out of her. Kim struggled against his grip, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing to make sense of the chaotic scene unfolding before her. She twisted free from his grasp, her lungs burning for air. The sound of Kim's scream sliced through the eerie silence of the cell block, echoing off the cold concrete walls. Ortiz, his suspicions confirmed, sprinted towards Kim's office, his heart pounding in his chest. He rounded the corner just in time to see Bob, fueled by a drug-induced frenzy, pinning Kim to the floor, his fist pummeling her face. "Get off of her!" Ortiz roared, his voice filled with a fury he didn't know he possessed. He charged at Bob, his shoulder connecting with Bob's ribs, sending him sprawling across the floor. Kim, her face bloodied and bruised, struggled to sit up, her ears ringing from the force of the blows. Bob, high on drugs and adrenaline, seemed unfazed by Ortiz's attack. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes wild, his breathing ragged. He lunged at Ortiz, tackling him to the ground, the two men wrestling for control. The fight, fueled by desperation and rage, was brutal and chaotic, a blur of fists and flailing limbs. Realizing that Bob was too strong to overpower, Ortiz reached for the nearest object he could find, a heavy fire extinguisher mounted on the wall near Kim's office. He grabbed it with both hands and swung it with all his might, aiming for Bob's head. The fire extinguisher made a sickening thud as it connected with Bob's skull. Bob's eyes rolled back in his head, his body going limp as he collapsed onto the floor, the fight draining out of him. Ortiz, his chest heaving, stood over Bob's prone form, the fire extinguisher slipping from his grasp and clattering loudly to the floor. Kim, still dazed and disoriented from the attack, watched the scene unfold with a detached sense of horror. She had never witnessed such violence firsthand, the raw brutality of the fight leaving her shaken to her core. Blood stained the floor, a grim testament to the ferocity of the struggle. The sound of the fire extinguisher hitting the floor echoed through the cell block, a jarring alarm that pierced the tense silence. Within seconds, the sound of running footsteps and shouting voices filled the air as correctional officers, alerted to the commotion, rushed to the scene. Kim, her body trembling with shock, could only watch helplessly as the officers swarmed the area, their movements swift and practiced as they secured Bob and assessed the situation. A wave of dizziness washed over her, her vision blurring as the adrenaline that had been coursing through her veins began to subside. The aftermath of the attack was a blur of activity. Kim, her injuries tended to by the prison medical staff, was whisked away to a nearby hospital for a thorough examination. The gravity of the situation slowly began to sink in as she lay in the sterile environment of the hospital room, the events of the evening replaying in her mind like a horrifying nightmare. Back at F.C.I. Jesup, the investigation into the attack was well underway. Bob, his drug-induced rage replaced by a sullen silence, was placed in solitary confinement, facing a slew of new charges that would likely keep him incarcerated for many years to come. Ortiz, hailed as a hero by both inmates and staff alike, was questioned extensively about his role in subduing Bob. His actions, deemed justified given the circumstances, were met with a mixture of gratitude and admiration. He had risked his own safety, his own freedom to protect another human being. News of Ortiz's bravery spread quickly through the prison, his actions becoming a testament to the enduring power of compassion, even in the most unforgiving of environments. The warden, deeply moved by Ortiz's selfless act, promised to recommend him for early release, a gesture that was met with thunderous applause from the inmate population. Kim Anderson eventually recovered from her physical injuries. The bruises faded and her bones healed. However, the emotional and psychological scars of that night lingered, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the hidden dangers lurking within the walls of F.C.I. The carefree confidence she had once possessed had been replaced by a newfound awareness, a sobering understanding of the darkness that could reside within the human heart. She returned to work at the prison, her presence met with a mix of relief and admiration from her fellow officers and a newfound respect from the inmates. The attack had irrevocably changed her, stripping away her illusions and forcing her to confront the raw realities of her chosen profession. She was no longer the rookie, the wide-eyed idealist who had walked through the prison gates just a few months earlier. The experience had tempered her spirit, forging within her a steely resolve and an unwavering commitment to her duty. She carried herself with a quiet authority, her every action reflecting the lessons learned from her ordeal. The inmates, once emboldened by her perceived vulnerability, now treated her with a cautious respect, sensing the strength that lay beneath her calm exterior. Yet, Despite the transformation she had undergone, Kim remained haunted by the memory of that night, the terror in Bob's eyes, the sickening thud of the fire extinguisher, the metallic scent of blood hanging heavy in the air. She couldn't shake the feeling that a part of her innocence had been lost, a casualty of the brutal reality of prison life. In the quiet moments when the clamor of the prison faded into the background, Kim found herself reflecting on the complexities of the situation, the blurred lines between good and evil, victim and perpetrator. She had witnessed firsthand the capacity for both darkness and light that resided within the human heart, the potential for violence and the power of redemption. The experience had challenged her preconceived notions about justice and punishment, forcing her to confront the uncomfortable truth that even within the confines of a prison, redemption was possible. Ortiz, a man who had committed a terrible act, had risen above his circumstances, choosing compassion over indifference, selflessness over self-preservation. Kim realized that her time at F.C.I. Jesup had been a journey of self-discovery, a crash course in the complexities of human nature. She had learned that even in the darkest of places, hope could flicker, and that even those who'd strayed from the path could find their way back. Kim Anderson's shocking experience at F.C.I. Jesup was a stark reminder that prison life is far more nuanced and multifaceted than often portrayed in movies and TV shows. It is a world where fear and hope coexist, where darkness and light constantly intertwine, and where the potential for both harm and healing is ever present.